Welcome to AudioCert, where the official study guides are brought to life. Today we're diving deep into the EC Council's Certified Threat Intelligence Analyst, or CTIA, certification. For anyone operating in the cybersecurity landscape, you know that truly understanding your adversary isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely paramount. This CTIA certification arms professionals with the ability to do just that, to deeply comprehend threats, mitigate risks, and effectively leverage threat intelligence for a much stronger security posture. And in this particular deep dive, we're zooming in on what's arguably the most critical final phase of that entire process.
That's right. Our focus today is Module 6, Intelligence Reporting and Dissemination. Think about it this way. You could have the most brilliant threat intelligence, the most profound insights into an adversary's tactics, techniques, and procedures, they're TTPs. But if that intelligence isn't communicated effectively, if it doesn't reach the right hands at the right time, it's essentially useless.
Right, it just sits there.
Exactly. This module in our conversation is all about bridging that gap. It's about ensuring vital knowledge doesn't just sit in a report. It makes it out of the analytical lab and into the operational environment, enabling intelligence-informed decisions that genuinely enhance an organization's defenses. It's about translating raw insight into real-world impact for you.
That's our mission then. We're going to unpack how to craft truly effective threat intelligence reports, navigating the complexities of sharing that intelligence both internally and externally. We'll explore the rules and platforms that govern this crucial exchange. And finally, how to seamlessly integrate this intelligence into an organization's existing environment to make a tangible, measurable impact. Okay, let's unpack this. #, overview of threat intelligence reports. So let's kick things off with the very essence of what we're talking about. What exactly is a threat intelligence report, and why is it the culmination of so much hard work in a cybersecurity program?
Right. At its core, reporting and dissemination represent the absolute last phase of a comprehensive threat intelligence program. It's where all that painstaking collection, aggregation, transformation, and analysis finally pays off. These aren't just data dumps. They are, as the material calls them, prose documents. They tell the story.
Prose documents, okay.
Yeah, detailing attacks, those crucial TTPs we mentioned, specific threat actors, targeted systems, critical information, that sort of thing. Their purpose is to transform raw, often overwhelming data into what we call actionable contextual intelligence, which is absolutely vital for an organization's decision-making.
So it sounds less like a spreadsheet and more like a narrative, right? Like a detective's final case file that doesn't just list evidence, but explains the whole story, connects the dots, and crucially, lays out what needs to be done. What's the biggest challenge in making a report feel like a narrative rather than just a, data dump?
You've hit on the central challenge. The difficulty lies in translating highly technical data into a coherent, understandable story that resonates with different audiences. And that story often comes in two main forms in the world of cyber threat intelligence, each tailored to a distinct audience and purpose. First, we have threat analysis reports.
Okay.
These provide a detailed, almost forensic analysis of specific threats. They're designed for cybersecurity professionals on the front lines, like anti-fraud teams, forensic analysts, or incident response IR teams.
So what kind of specific details would an IR team expect to find in one of these? Give us an example.
Okay, in a threat analysis report, you'd find a deep dive into specifics. This includes attributing an attack to a particular threat actor or group, understanding the attack's history and geographical location, and perhaps most importantly, deciphering the attacker's motivation and intention.
The why.
Exactly, the why. The report would also detail possible victims and targets based on industry, known vulnerabilities, or geography. An assessment of the attack's impact and associated business risks is critical. Then it gets highly technical. The specific tactics used, from initial information gathering and social engineering techniques to the types of malware deployed, a list of compromised systems.
Wow, okay.
How command and control or C2 mechanisms were established, and even the data exfiltration techniques employed. It might even note resemblances to other known threats. Crucially, it includes indicators and events for detection, comprehensive mitigation methods, and an assessment of the probability of future reoccurrence.
So very granular.
Very. Imagine a report detailing a brand new ransomware variant, its origins, the specific industries it targets, complete with an analysis of its encryption methods and how it spreads. That's a threat analysis report.
That's incredibly detailed, perfect for technical teams. What's the second type then?
Our second type is threat landscape reports. These offer a broader, more in-depth awareness and greater insight into the overall threat environment an organization faces. These are less about a single incident and more about the bigger picture.
Like a quarterly security briefing for leadership, maybe? Outlining the top 5 threats for their sector and how their current defenses stack up?
That's a perfect analogy.
Yes.
These reports would include a comprehensive review of the business risks an organization is facing, an investigation into threats affecting not just their organization, but similar organizations, providing context.
Ah, okay. Benchmarking almost.
In a way, yes. It summarizes the most likely threat actors targeting the organization, along with their motivations, intentions, and TTPs. And finally, it provides a rating of security priorities, helping leadership understand where to focus resources.
Producing these reports isn't just about dumping data, it's about crafting a message that resonates, like you said. So how do we generate concise, impactful reports that truly serve their purpose?
Well, the receivers of threat intelligence overwhelmingly prefer properly structured reports. That's key. The length, detail, and focus will vary wildly depending on who's reading it. And timeliness is absolutely essential. You need to disseminate timely and relevant threat intelligence frequently within the organization to increase internal awareness.
So some people need it now, others maybe weekly.
Exactly. Some consumers need constant real-time streams, while others are fine with a daily or weekly summary.
So what are the essential ingredients for these customized, concise reports? What absolutely has to be in there?
For customized reports, you need the basics first. Report details who did the analysis, client details who's it for, and test details what was tested, dates, assets, intelligence type. Pretty straightforward stuff.
All right, housekeeping.
Then you get to the meat. An executive summary is crucial, a high-level overview of threats and their impact. The traffic light protocol, or TLP, is also essential. We'll probably talk more about TLP later, but it's that color-coded system defining dissemination boundaries.
Got it. Like a quick visual cue for confidentiality?
Precisely. You also include the analysis methodology, the nitty-gritty threat details, specific indicators of compromised IOCs, things like IP addresses, URLs, file hashes, and critically, recommended actions. Clear guidance on what to do. Is it just situational awareness only, or is it block these IOCs or integrate this strategy? The nugget here is that these elements, when tailored, transform raw data into a precise, actionable briefing.
That's a comprehensive framework, but producing reports is one thing. Ensuring they're actually used to their full potential is another kettle of fish, isn't it? How do we maximize the return on investment, the ROI, from these threat intelligence reports?
You've hit on a crucial point there. The value of any threat intelligence program hinges directly on how efficiently that intelligence is communicated and, more importantly, acted upon. Always remember, the quality of the intelligence produced fundamentally constrains the value of the report. Garbage in, garbage out, essentially.
Makes sense. So what are the key factors to ensure we're getting the most bang for our buck, so to speak?
Several factors are key. First, be intelligent. Sounds obvious, but actionable, timely intelligence demands dedicated, skilled analysts and high standards for content and format. You need to decide on report types and audiences before you even start implementation.
Plan ahead.
Definitely. Second, share threat intelligence within the organization before generating the report. Producing TI is expensive. Maximize its value by sharing internally first. This fosters awareness among both technical and non-technical stakeholders, combining collective knowledge. Third, identify internal needs. Tailor intelligence to various teams.
Like you said, executives need different things than the SOC team.
Exactly. High-level execs need strategic business risks. Red teams need vulnerabilities and TTPs. SOC and IR teams need insights from recent attacks on similar orgs. Vulnerability management needs info on increased attacks on specific software. Even the help desk can benefit from early breach identification.
That's a powerful point about tailoring the message. But what about the presentation itself, how it looks and feels?
Absolutely critical. Fourth, give importance to formatting. Reports are useless if they're not understood. Non-technical audiences need consolidated facts, maybe single-page reports or presentations. Technical teams need the source data, the analysis results. Customization is absolutely key.
And making it fit their workflow.
Yes. Critically, process reports into existing workflows. Integrate them into operational teams' existing processes. If the help desk uses certain workflow apps, put the intelligence right there. And remember, more detail is not always better. Avoid information overload. Prioritize the most important intelligence first, then follow up with less critical details if needed. The insight here is that reports are tools, Like any tool, their effectiveness isn't just in their existence, but in how well they fit the hands that wield them.
That's a great point about avoiding information overload, because if reports are too dense, even the best feedback loop won't save them. And speaking of feedback, that sounds incredibly important. It's not a one-and-done deal, is it? Send the report and forget it.
Not at all. Absolutely not. Fifth, set up a feedback loop. It's crucial to gather feedback from your audience. Are they taking action? Was it useful? What changes would they suggest? Reports need to constantly evolve, be flexible, and proactive.
So how does that loop work practically?
The goal is continuous improvement, enhance deliverables, produce more accurate, relevant, timely intelligence. Threat actors, business processes, technology, they're all constantly evolving, so feedback is how you stay ahead. You can include a feedback section in the report, maybe with a hyperlink. Consumers rate the intelligence based on, say, awareness, did it provide insight, actionable, did it improve defenses, and informative, did it provide context. This feedback directly guides decisions for collection techniques and overall program enhancement. It ensures the intelligence program adapts and remains relevant.
While the human element of crafting and refining these reports is crucial, I imagine there are also tools that can assist in making this process more structured and efficient.
Oh, absolutely. Report writing tools are vital for representing threat information in a structured way. Makes it easier for readers to view, grasp, and ultimately use. Two notable examples mentioned are Magic Tree and KeepNote.
Magic Tree, tell me about that one.
Magic Tree stores data in a tree structure. Think of it like a branching diagram. It's a very natural way to represent, say, network test data, like a host having specific ports, which run certain services, hosting applications which might have vulnerabilities.
Okay, visual and logical.
Exactly. It makes organizing complex, interconnected data much clearer. Plus, it can extract data into lists or tables using something called XPath expressions, which is useful for feeding information into other programs or reports.
So it helps organize complex data visually, but then can flatten it out for other systems. Makes sense. What about KeepNote?
KeepNote is a bit different. It's a cross-platform note-taking application, works on Windows, Linux, Mac OS X. It's great for rich text notes, embedding images, and it has full-text search. Its notes are stored in standard HTML and XML formats, making archiving and transferring them really simple. So while Magic Tree is more for highly structured technical data, KeepNote is perhaps better for general collection and organization of textual information, research notes, that kind of thing. The insight here is that structured tools aren't just for the analyst writing the reports. They simplify consumption for everyone, ensuring the intelligence remains digestible and accessible.
Hashtag 2. Introduction to dissemination. Okay, so we've collected, analyzed, and beautifully reported on our intelligence. Now the big question. How do we get it where it needs to go? Let's talk about dissemination, the crucial act of actually sharing that intelligence.
Dissemination is essentially the bridge between producing intelligence and seeing it have a real-world impact. Timely access to threat intelligence, or TI, is absolutely vital to prevent data breaches. You need to get it out there. Internal and external dissemination helps organizations prevent both recurring and emerging threats.
How does it work in practice?
Well, after collection and analysis, the generated TI is disseminated to the target audience. This can be done manually. Think email, websites, maybe even hard copies, or automatically feeding directly into systems. The recipients, or consumers, are at various levels: strategic, operational, tactical, and technical, within both business and technology functions. The core purpose is simple: ensure intelligence reliably reaches recipients in a timely manner, with an opportunity for feedback.
And what makes it beneficial for the consumer? What are they looking for?
For your benefit as the consumer, 3 criteria are essential: the right content, good quality, aiding mitigation; the right presentation, concise, accurate, understandable; and the right time, within the required time frame for effective, timely security decisions. Get those right, and the intelligence becomes truly valuable.
It sounds like a personalized approach is often needed given the varied needs of different consumers. What are some of these preferences for dissemination? How do people want to receive this stuff?
Different consumers definitely have distinct preferences, and fulfilling these is critical if you want the intelligence to be used effectively. One major preference nowadays is the automation of security feeds and application program interfaces, APIs.
So getting it straight into the machines.
Exactly. This means integrating TI directly with security mechanisms like security incident and event management SIEM systems, antivirus, next-generation firewalls, NGFWs, and intrusion detection or prevention systems, IDSPs. Automated feeds and APIs make sharing and integrating TI faster and more efficient, cutting down on manual effort.
So that's getting the data directly into the tools that can act on it. What else are people looking for?
Another key preference is a searchable knowledge base. Cyber threat intelligence is cumulative, right? An indicator you receive today might connect to something seen months or even years ago. Organizations need a way to store and easily reference this past threat information.
Like a detective's personal case file archive. Every clue, every lead, meticulously cataloged for cross-referencing.
That's a great way to put it. Without that searchable history, you're effectively starting from scratch with every new threat, which is incredibly inefficient. And finally, back to tailored reports, as we discussed earlier. Consumers prefer structured formats, but the detail, length, objective, and focus vary hugely by role. High-level execs need those weekly or monthly summaries, while operational teams might need constant, real-time streams of data.
Okay, so we know how people prefer to get it, but why go through all this effort to share intelligence in the first place? What's in it for us, and what are the collective benefits when organizations share this vital information?
The overarching goal is pretty clear. Utilize the collective knowledge, experience, and capabilities of your sharing partners to enhance your overall security posture. Operationally, this translates into updating security policies, enabling continuous monitoring, and configuring security mechanisms more effectively. Strategically, shared intelligence provides crucial input for planning maybe more drastic changes to your security posture. And the value is often highest when it's shared among organizations facing common threats and TTPs maybe within the same industry sector.
That makes sense. Strength in numbers, learning from peers. What are the major benefits you see?
We can break it down into 4 major benefits. First, sharing situational awareness. Organizations can leverage collaborated information, analytical capabilities, and shared experiences of attacks. Sometimes even a single indicator of compromise and IOC from one partner can significantly increase security awareness for the entire community.
So one person spots something, everyone benefits.
Precisely. Second, enhance security posture. Sharing intelligence provides better insight into the threat environment. It helps you identify damaged systems faster and improves detection, response, mitigation, and recovery processes. It also protects other organizations in the community, creating a kind of herd immunity. The nugget here is that while the tech aims for seamless exchange, the real defensive agility and knowledge maturation aren't just about data volume. They're about the quality of the human relationships and trust underpinning that exchange. That's often the hardest part to build.
So it's not just about protecting yourself, but fostering a collective defense. That's powerful. What else?
Exactly. Third is knowledge maturation. By sharing and analyzing seemingly unrelated pieces of information, organizations can correlate data collected by others. This enhances existing indicators, develops deeper knowledge on adversary TTPs, and reveals similarities between incidents, leading to a more mature understanding of the threats you face. Finally, greater defensive agility. Threat actors constantly adapt their TTPs. That's a given. Sharing intelligence helps organizations track these rapidly changing methods, allowing for quicker updates to security strategies. This agility reduces your attack risk and, crucially, forces threat actors to invest more time and money in developing new TTPs, making attacks more expensive and difficult for them.
Okay, it sounds like a no-brainer then for everyone to share intelligence freely, but I imagine there are significant hurdles in reality. What makes intelligence sharing so challenging in practice?
You're absolutely right. It's far from simple. There are numerous challenges, which we can sort of group into 3 main areas. First, challenges related to actually consuming and producing threat intelligence. A primary hurdle here, and maybe the biggest, is establishing trust.
Trust. Seems fundamental.
It is. Building and maintaining trust, especially when sensitive information is involved, requires significant effort. Often it involves regular face-to-face meetings, consistent communication. Without trust, information exchange is severely limited or just won't happen at all. It's interesting, isn't it? In a field driven by code and algorithms, the fundamental challenge often boils down to something as human and, frankly, messy as trust.
That's a very human problem in a very technical field. So beyond trust, what are the other production and consumption hurdles?
Well, then there's accomplishing interoperability and automation. This requires standardized data formats and protocols, everyone speaking the same language technologically. Adopting new standards can be time-consuming, resource-intensive, and even risky if formats change down the line. Third, protecting sensitive information. We're talking about things like controlled unclassified information, COI, and personally identifiable information, PII.
Can you quickly define CUI? I know PI, but CUI might be less familiar.
Sure. CUI is basically government information that isn't formally classified but still needs serious protection. because its unauthorized release could harm national security interests, privacy, law enforcement, ongoing operations, things like that. Leakage of CUI or PII can lead to financial loss, legal actions, and severe reputation damage. Sharing logs, for example, could inadvertently reveal your security capabilities. So, employing strict information handling designations and policies is essential.
And what about securing classified government intelligence? I imagine that's a whole other level.
It is. That's a huge one. Securing classified information. Intelligence derived from government sources is often classified. Obtaining and maintaining the necessary security clearances for continuous access is both difficult and costly for most private organizations. And finally, just permitting information consumption and publication. This requires dedicated infrastructure, tools, staff, and training. Frequent exchange of large volumes of information can strain processing capabilities, and manual exchange might be the only option if automated tools aren't available or integrated.
Okay, that covers consuming and producing. What about when an organization wants to share its own intelligence outward with others? What are the specific challenges there?
The challenges shift slightly when you're the one providing the intel. First, abiding legal and organizational requirements. Your own executive and legal teams will often impose restrictions to protect business interests, legal obligations, and privacy concerns. These restrictions, though necessary, can unfortunately affect the value, accessibility, quality, and timeliness of the information you're able to share.
So internal hurdles.
Exactly. Second, there's the issue of limitation on attribution. Sharing information anonymously allows for potentially broader exchange and reduces reputation risk if the intel is somehow flawed. But the flip side is that it can limit the usefulness and the trust placed in the information because the source is unidentified. It's a trade-off.
And finally, what about challenges when an organization is on the receiving end, consuming intelligence from another organization?
Right, consuming external intelligence. The main points here are obtaining external information effectively. This requires the right infrastructure to integrate that external data into your internal decision-making processes, like feeding it into your Sun solutions. Intelligence is only valuable if your organization can actually act on it. If it just sits in an inbox, it's wasted. And critically, assessing the quality of received information. Before utilizing any threat intelligence you get from outside, it's absolutely crucial to evaluate its accuracy, its relevance to you, and understand the risks associated with using or perhaps not using that information. Don't just blindly trust incoming feeds.
Beyond the external challenges of sharing between organizations, even within a single organization, effective dissemination requires careful thought and tailoring. Who are the main internal consumers and what do they typically need?
Good point. Internally, before you disseminate anything, you absolutely must verify that the intelligence meets the specific needs of your consumers and is in a format they can actually use, both the human users and the security systems. We typically categorize internal consumers into three broad groups: strategic users, operational users, and tactical users.
Let's start with strategic users. These are typically the non-technical, high-level executives, the board members, right?
Precisely. Strategic users need clear insight into security trends and risks, but framed in a way that informs business decisions. The big challenge here is bridging that communication gap between technical findings and business impact. You need to clearly emphasize the underlying value and business benefits derived from threat intelligence, translating technical risks into terms of potential financial loss, reputation damage, regulatory fines, etc.
Makes sense. And operational users. These are more technical, like the Network Operations Center, NOC staff, or system administrators.
Yes. Operational users usually have in-depth technical knowledge, and their job is to integrate IOCs into their daily operations. Reports for them help identify compromised systems, block suspicious activity, detect malware signatures at firewalls or IDS/APISA systems, identify necessary patches, and reduce recurring incidents. They need contextual data and clear attribution to attacks to enhance their day-to-day security functions.
And finally, tactical users like the incident response teams who are in the thick of it during an attack.
Right. Tactical users also have deep technical knowledge, and they consume intelligence specifically to focus their incident response efforts during an event. Reports for them include very specific granular information, domain names, IP addresses, file hashes, things they can use right now. This intelligence is generally temporal, meaning it has a very short lifetime. It often expires quickly as threats evolve or attackers change infrastructure. It's all about immediate action, making quick decisions during an unfolding incident. The key takeaway here is that effective internal dissemination isn't about just blasting out more information, but delivering the right information to the right people for the right job at the right time.
To build an efficient sharing ecosystem, whether internal or external, it feels like we need to answer some fundamental questions about how all this works together. What are those key building blocks for threat intelligence sharing?
Indeed. We can frame these as four crucial questions that need answers. First, the modes and models of TI exchange. This asks how intelligence is shared, with whom are you sharing, and what's the underlying motivation? Is it voluntary cooperation or mandated by regulation? Second, rules of engagement and protocols. What specific rules, procedures, and formal agreements govern this sharing relationship? What are the ground rules?
Okay, how, with whom, why, and the rules. What else?
Third, information exchange types. What intelligence is actually being shared? Is it raw data, processed indicators, full analytical reports? And what is the goal of sharing that specific type of information? And finally, exchange mechanisms. This gets down to the technical nuts and bolts. How is the intelligence actually transmitted and received, and in what technical format, like STX, TAX-T, email, portal? Answering these four questions provides a complete picture of the sharing framework, ensuring you're not just focusing on isolated components like the tech or the data type, but the whole ecosystem.
Answering those questions clearly leads us right into the heart of collaboration. Why is working together so crucial, especially in cybersecurity, where threats are constantly evolving and often transnational?
Collaboration is absolutely foundational today. Cyber attacks can be politically, legally, and financially devastating, as we know. And the simple truth is, no single organization, no matter how large or well-resourced, can have complete awareness of all evolving threats on its own. It's just not possible. Collaboration allows organizations to learn from each other's mistakes and successes, to widen the scope of their threat analysis, to establish vital trust relationships, and ultimately to stay ahead or at least keep pace with the rapidly evolving threat landscape. This means sharing intelligence both internally across departments and externally, often through platforms like information sharing and analysis centers, the ISX.
What kind of content is typically exchanged in these collaborative efforts? Is it just IOCs?
Well, it's much broader than just IOCs, though those are important. Collaboration involves a rich exchange of information. This includes detailed contextual knowledge on threat indicators, yes, but also adversary TTPs, information on specific threat actors, and details about ongoing attack campaigns. We also exchange attack attribution findings, the suspected motives of threat actors, information about victims, appropriately anonymized, of course, and details on frequently exploited vulnerabilities. Defensive and remediation policies are often shared, as are best practices to enhance incident response processes across the community. And importantly, tools for translating intelligence into standard formats are sometimes shared to ensure interoperability.
How does this collaboration actually happen in practice? Are we talking about informal chats between security buddies or highly structured automated processes?
It can genuinely be both, and often is. Collaboration can be accomplished through a manual process. This often involves unstructured exchange, think emails, between trusted contacts, formal briefings, security alerts, posts on secure web portals, shared reports, or discussions in private forums. This tends to be more informal, relationship-based.
Okay, the human touch.
Exactly. Or it can use an automated process. This involves structured information exchange, typically through a centralized platform or using standardized protocols like SDIX and TACX2. These platforms support users to upload, aggregate, and analyze threat intelligence using standard formats and often governed by formal agreements. This includes commercial platforms, government initiatives, analysis centers, and open-source sharing communities. The key nugget here, regardless of process, is that the final audience determines the appropriate format and mechanism. You absolutely have to decide who needs to receive the intelligence before you figure out the best way to share it.
Any collaborative effort, especially when dealing with sensitive information like threat intel, absolutely needs ground rules. In threat intelligence, establishing these sharing rules seems paramount.
It is absolutely critical. Establishing clear sharing rules helps organizations control both the generation and the dissemination of threat intelligence. You have to remember, inappropriate revelation of sensitive intelligence can have severe consequences not just for your own organization, but for your partners and potentially your customers too. Organizations typically establish internal rules for exchange between business units and also need rules to govern external exchanges with partners or communities.
What specific things should an organization consider when setting up these rules before sharing threat intelligence?
Before sharing, an organization really needs to think through and document several things. First, list the specific types of threat information that can be shared. What's off limits? Define the conditions and circumstances under which sharing is permitted. When is it okay? When is it not? Identify the approved individuals or recipient organizations. Who exactly gets this info? Identify the requirements and methods to filter and sanitize the information to remove sensitive internal details. And apply clear information handling designations like TLP to describe recipient privileges and limitations. Key factors influencing these rules are the authenticity of the recipient, the sensitivity of the information itself, and the possible negative impacts if the information is mishandled or leaks. These rules are usually developed with input from information owners, management, and crucially, legal and privacy officials, and are often formalized through non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, and broader framework agreements.
What are the key areas these rules typically need to address in detail?
3 critical areas usually stand out. First, information sensitivity and privacy. Organizations handle incredibly sensitive information, including that PII of employees and clients, and potentially CUI. This data is mandated for protection by various laws and regulations. Think PCI DSS for payment cards, SOX for financials, IPI for health info, FISMA for federal systems, GLBA for financial institutions. Disclosure of PII, even accidentally or internally to unauthorized employees, is a major challenge and risk, requiring strong, clear policies.
Okay, privacy's huge. What's next?
Second, sharing designations. As we mentioned, organizations use methods to categorize shared information based on its required handling. The traffic light protocol, TLP, is the most common example here. That color coding scheme, red, amber, green, white, assigns specific restrictions on how widely the information can be shared. TLP RDD is the most restrictive, basically for recipients' eyes only, while TLP white allows unlimited disclosure. These procedures for applying and interpreting TLP must be documented, formally approved, and staff need to be trained on them.
Makes sense. And the third area?
Third, threat information sharing and tracking procedures. With the sheer volume and continuous growth of threat information, tracking its origin becomes really difficult, but it's absolutely vital for legal and regulatory compliance and for assessing reliability. Organizations need detailed reports on their intelligence providers, how data was collected, analyzed, and processed. Procedures should cover things like identifying intelligence that is freely shareable versus restricted, methods to review, sanitize, and protect critical internal information before sharing, having plans in place for potential data leakage incidents, automating exchange where possible to reduce error, defining exactly how handling designations like TLP are applied, monitored, and enforced, enabling non-attributed information exchange when necessary, and robustly tracking both internal and external sources. The overarching point here is that these procedures must clearly define roles, responsibilities, and authorities to ensure an effective, secure, and uninterrupted flow of shared information. This careful structuring ensures that the act of sharing doesn't inadvertently become a new vulnerability.
Thinking about who to share with, it's clear that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You mentioned different communities. Can you elaborate on the different models for how information sharing communities are structured?
Right. Organizations often struggle with the what, how, and with whom of sharing, simply because there's such a variety of industries, partners, and types of threat intelligence. A single community rarely covers all needs. To address these varied requirements, a tiered threat intelligence information sharing model has become quite common, often referenced in frameworks developed by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. This model typically includes 3 tiers.
Okay, let's break those tiers down. What's tier 1?
Tier 1 is the public tier. This includes broad communities where the information being shared is generally less sensitive. Think public vulnerability disclosures, general threat advisories. Membership is typically voluntary and informal. Information is disseminated widely, often using mechanisms like public email lists or publicly accessible websites, without needing a highly structured, trusted framework. It's really about general awareness for a very large audience.
Got it. Public broadcast. What about tier 2?
Tier 2 is the private tier. These communities limit information sharing for security or privacy reasons. They usually consist of public and private organizations that share common interests. Perhaps they're sector-specific, like finance or energy, regional, national, or even international. Membership in Tier 2 can be formal or informal, but there's usually some level of vetting or shared understanding. Information is more targeted than Tier 1.
Okay, more focused.
Yeah.
And the most restrictive, tier 3.
That's Tier 3, the targeted tier. This tier includes a small number of communities, often focused on critical infrastructure sectors or very specific high-stakes needs where security requirements are paramount. They use strong governance frameworks, often including formal NDAs, requirements for national security clearances, and operate within highly trusted sharing environments using mechanisms like encrypted web traffic with robust multi-factor authentication, MFA. Think very sensitive, very controlled sharing among highly trusted partners. The nugget here is that effective sharing isn't about throwing all your data into one giant bucket. It's about carefully matching the right level of trust, sensitivity, and sharing mechanism to the right community and the specific intelligence being shared.
The type of information we exchange also varies greatly, as you've mentioned, from raw log data to high-level strategic summaries. Can you describe these different information exchange types in a bit more detail?
Certainly. Threat intelligence gets exchanged in many different forms due to its heterogeneous nature. We can categorize this using a kind of four-layer approach, moving from raw data up to strategic insight. The lowest level is low-level data. This is the raw, unprocessed output from monitoring systems, things like operating system logs, IDS alerts, firewall logs, application logs. Crucially, this data is generally not useful without significant additional context.
Just noise, mostly.
Pretty much on its own. Think of it as just individual pieces of evidence lying around without any connection or story. The next layer up is detection indicators. These are specific patterns or artifacts that, when matched with that low-level data, can indicate malicious activities. The key differentiator here is context. An IP address alone might be meaningless low-level data, but if that IP address is flagged as being part of a specific malware campaign or used in a known attack technique, it becomes a useful detection indicator. Examples include specific IDS alerts, honeypot alerts, lists of malicious IP addresses or URLs, malware hash codes.
Okay, so context turns data into indicators. Moving up the ladder.
Third, we have advisories. This is higher-level information, still very useful for threat detection and understanding. Examples include vulnerability advisories, which often come with attack scenarios and remediation guidance, high-level alert data that requires some manual interpretation, and reports detailing the trends and techniques being used by adversaries, offering insight into their behavior. Finally, at the top, we have strategic reports. These are high-level summaries specifically designed to assist policymakers and leadership during strategic decision-making. They help in designing security policies, identifying future attack trends, prioritizing investments, and mitigating broad business risks. These reports distill the most critical insights for leadership, translating technical threats into strategic concerns.
Given these different types of intelligence and the various community tiers, how does the actual technical plumbing for sharing work? Let's explore the architectures that facilitate this exchange. How does the data actually move?
Right, the technical underpinnings. Sharing communities generally use two basic architectures, although sometimes they're combined into a third hybrid model. The first is the centralized exchange architecture. This involves a central hub. Think of it like a clearinghouse or a central repository. This hub receives intelligence from members and potentially other external sources. The information received is either directly disseminated to other members, or it might first be processed by the hub, things like aggregation, correlation, normalization, enrichment, and quality checks before being distributed.
What are the pros and cons of having that single central hub?
The advantages are that the hub can provide value-added services like processing and analysis. Also, members don't necessarily need to adopt multiple data formats if the hub standardizes everything. And members only need to maintain a connection to the hub rather than potentially dozens of peers. However, the drawbacks are significant. There's full reliance on the hub, which creates a single point of failure. If the hub goes down, sharing stops. It's also a very attractive target for cyber attacks. And any performance issues at the hub affect all members simultaneously. That single point of failure is often the biggest concern with this model.
That makes sense. Centralization has its risks. What's the alternative architecture?
The second main type is the peer-to-peer, P2P exchange architecture. In this model, members exchange information directly with each other without relying on a central repository or intermediary. Each member organization is responsible for handling its own data enrichment, protection, and distribution to its chosen peers.
What are the benefits and drawbacks there?
P2P offers direct, potentially very rapid exchange of information between members. And importantly, there's no single point of failure. Communication channels are distributed. If one member goes offline, the others can still share. The downside is that if data formats aren't standardized across the peers, members might have to adopt and manage multiple different formats, which can be costly and complex. And the operational cost and complexity can grow exponentially as more members join the network, since each might need direct connections to many others.
And the third option, which tries to combine the best of both.
That's the hybrid exchange architecture. As the name suggests, this model combines elements of both centralized and P2P approaches. For instance, a central hub might be used for functions like resource discovery, finding out who has what data, managing sharing requests, or providing third-party authentication services. But the actual intelligence exchange, especially for time-sensitive data, might occur directly P2P between members. An example could be low-level intrusion alerts shared P2P for speed, while more detailed incident reports are submitted and retrieved via the centralized hub. The advantage is flexibility. You can make dynamic decisions for time-sensitive info, and the hub can still help define long-term goals. The disadvantages are increased operational costs and complexity in implementation compared to the simpler models. The nugget here is that while technology enables these different architectures, the choice often comes down to a trade-off, balancing efficiency and resilience against cost and inherent complexity.
Regardless of the architecture chosen, the quality of the intelligence being shared is paramount. You don't want bad data flooding the system. How do we ensure we're getting good data, and how do we assess that quality effectively?
High-quality shared information is absolutely essential for producing actionable intelligence that leads to better defenses. Poor quality intelligence directly affects decision-making, potentially leading to ineffective or even counterproductive security measures. One major challenge is the sheer volume of threat intelligence feeds available today, making manual quality checks almost impossible for any organization of scale. Automated assessment is also difficult because, as we discussed, it relies heavily on establishing trust in those TI feeds and their sources first.
So how do we assess quality then? If manual checks are impractical and automation is tricky, what methods can we use?
Well, one method is to use historical or past information. Organizations can track the performance of past data received from specific members or sensors and use that as a quality metric. Did their past indicators prove accurate? Did they lead to true positives? However, this primarily looks at the source's track record, not necessarily all the characteristics of the current indicators. A more efficient approach is often to assess multiple indicators coming from community members and sensors that are already known for producing reliable data. If several trusted sources flag the same indicator, your confidence increases. For more advanced approaches, organizations are increasingly incorporating machine learning techniques and computational trust models. These can analyze various factors to generate multi-indicator or multi-dimensional trust scores for different TI feeds or specific indicators. These methods aim to quantify trust and quality in a more objective way, which is crucial in navigating the flood of available information. The real challenge, remember, is that bad intelligence can genuinely be worse than no intelligence at all. It can lead you down the wrong path, wasting precious time and resources during an incident.
With all this sharing going on and the potential sensitivity of the data being exchanged, protecting that information becomes even more critical. How do we manage access control effectively within a sharing community?
That's a vital point. As organizations become more collaborative and share more data, the need for robust information protection and clear accountability increases significantly. Implementing strong access control mechanisms is not just recommended, it's essential. There are three fundamental elements to effective access control in this context. First, identity. You need a clear, reliable way to identify new members and organizations joining the community. And you need a mechanism to view the verified profiles of existing members. You absolutely need to know who you're sharing with.
Know your partners. Makes sense.
Second, authentication. Both machine-to-machine communication, like API calls between platforms, and user-to-user communication, like logging into a portal, must be securely authenticated. This might be through traditional username-password combinations, but more securely, it often involves mutual authentication using digital certificates, potentially managed by a trusted certification authority. This confirms that the entity connecting is genuinely who or what they claim to be.
Identity verified, entity authenticated. What's the third leg?
The third element is authorization. Once an entity, user, or system is authenticated, they must have authorized access only to the appropriate levels or types of information based on their defined roles within the community and a common understanding of their privileges. This ensures that highly sensitive data is only accessed by those participants with a legitimate, verified need to know. Authorization is about enforcing the principle of least privilege within the sharing environment.
Okay, so bringing all these concepts together, the rules, the models, the tech, the trust, what are the overarching best practices for sharing threat intelligence effectively? What should organizations strive for?
The overall goal is always efficient, secure, and valuable sharing within communities, enabling members to effectively leverage their collective capabilities. There are about 8 key practices that contribute to this. First, create a record. Maintain a detailed internal record or report of the information your organization possesses, what intelligence it can generate, and under precisely what circumstances that information can be shared externally. This brings clarity and accountability. Second, exchange threat intelligence. Focus on sharing valuable insights, tools, techniques, attack campaigns, threat actor profiles. The emphasis should be on learning adversary TTPs to collaboratively craft better protective strategies.
So share the how and who, not just the what.
Exactly. Third, use standard data formats and transport protocols. This is absolutely crucial for success. Standards like SDIX and TAX2 enhance interoperability and timely dissemination, allowing different tools and repositories to exchange data quickly and automatically. Avoid proprietary formats where possible. Fourth, augment local data collection. Don't rely solely on external feeds. Use intelligence from sharing partners to improve your own local analysis and management processes, developing more robust internal network monitoring and attack campaign identification capabilities.
Okay, 4 down. What else?
Fifth, describe a method to cybersecurity. Ensure your organization is familiar with the typical cyber attack lifecycle. This understanding helps you develop protective measures that can detect, limit, or prevent different stages, like reconnaissance, malicious file delivery, or exploit mitigation. It's about being proactive based on understanding the adversary's process. Sixth, ensure resources for participation. Actively participating in a sharing community isn't free. You need to ensure you have the necessary hardware, software, services, trained staff, and infrastructure to support continuous involvement and contribution. Participation requires ongoing investment.
Right, it's not a passive activity.
Definitely not. Seventh, protect sensitive information. Maintain continuous awareness of information security best practices, emerging threats, and vulnerabilities related to the sharing process itself. Rigorously enforce the established sharing rules and data sharing agreements. Protect the data you receive as carefully as you protect your own. Finally, eighth, establish foundational infrastructure. Ensure your own basic security posture is sound. Identify clear roles and responsibilities for installing, operating, and maintaining your intelligence sharing capabilities. And of course, regularly patch vulnerabilities in the systems involved in sharing. These practices, when implemented together, build a much more resilient and effective sharing ecosystem for everyone involved.
Tag 3, participating in sharing relationships. In a world of constantly evolving, sophisticated threats, it feels like no organization can truly stand alone anymore. This is where these sharing relationships and communities really come into play. Why are these communities formed in the first place, and why are they becoming so indispensable?
You're right. They are formed out of sheer necessity, fundamentally. Organizations, even large ones, simply cannot have complete awareness of all evolving threats on their own. It's an impossible task. Sharing intelligence with similar organizations or trusted partners through dedicated communities significantly enhances defensive strategies and collective resilience. A threat intelligence sharing community is essentially a network, sometimes formal, sometimes informal, of organizations that agree to exchange intelligence. This could be a public-private partnership or an industry-to-industry consortium.
What drives organizations to join or form these groups?
There are 4 main reasons or drivers. First, enhanced depth and breadth of insight. Analysts share to improve their collective threat awareness, mature their understanding of TTPs, knowledge maturation, and increase their defensive alertness. You see more together than you do alone. Second, assurance of confidentiality. Well-structured communities provide mechanisms and agreements to ensure sensitive information is handled with appropriate care over communication channels and within the group. Third, common interests. Sharing provides a way for analysts and organizations facing similar threats, maybe targeting the same sector or region, to collaborate on finding effective solutions and defenses. And fourth, awareness of the bigger picture. Monitoring changes across a broader threat landscape helps detect potential large-scale cyber threats that could cause significant societal disruption, going beyond just individual organizational concerns. The core idea here is that these communities are really about collective survival and defense in a highly interconnected and often hostile digital environment.
Okay, so if an organization is convinced of the value, the next logical step is actually joining one or more of these communities. But how do you choose the right one? And what considerations are involved? It sounds like you might need to join multiple communities to cover different needs.
That's often the case, yes. An organization needs to look for communities or sources that fulfill their existing, specific intelligence requirements or help address known information gaps in their current visibility. Since many communities often focus on specific types of threat information, for example, sector-specific, vulnerability-focused IOC feeds, joining multiple ones might be necessary to get comprehensive coverage.
Where do you find these communities or sources?
Threat information can be obtained from various places. Established public and private sharing communities, government repositories and initiatives, commercial cyber intelligence feed providers, and, of course, open-source intelligence projects. When choosing, you absolutely must consider the types of information shared. Is it relevant to you? The community structure and governance model, and critically, the cost, both initial joining fees and the ongoing resources needed to sustain membership and participation.
Can you give some examples of the types of organizations or groups one might join?
Sure. Examples include industry-specific ISACs, information sharing and analysis centers, domestic and foreign government inserts, computer emergency readiness teams, or CSIRTs, computer security incident response teams, broader information sharing and analysis organizations, ISAOs, government programs like the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Automated Indicator Sharing, AIS initiative, or even sharing partnerships with your internet service providers, ISPs, or key supply chain partners.
Are these communities all structured the same way with the same rules?
No, definitely not. Some communities are quite informal, maybe self-organizing groups with basic rules and fairly fluid membership. Others are very formal, requiring invitation or sponsorship to join, rigorous vetting of potential members, legally binding non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, and sometimes even formal service-level agreements, SLAs, defining expectations and responsibilities.
Sounds like a big commitment. Who needs to sign off on this internally?
Before entering into any formal sharing agreements, organizations absolutely must obtain approval from several key internal stakeholders. Your leadership team needs to be on board as they supervise sharing activities and control the necessary resources. The legal team must review and approve any obligations or agreements. And privacy officers and other key stakeholders involved in the intelligence lifecycle, collecting, consuming, storing, analyzing, publishing, protecting TI, must also provide their input and approval.
What questions should an organization ask itself before committing to join a specific community?
That's a great point. Due diligence is key. Ask yourselves, is the threat intelligence shared by this community relevant to our organization, and does it provide genuine in-depth understanding? Does the information provide scope for us to take further action, or is it just informational? Are there mechanisms for submitting information non-attributed, if needed, and for protecting our identity? Is the shared information generally considered reliable and of good quality by existing members? Are the data formats used compatible with our existing infrastructure and tools, or will significant integration work be needed? And perhaps most pragmatically, does our organization actually have the capability, the people, processes, and tech to effectively collect, consume, store, and analyze the potential volume and frequency of data from this community? Don't bite off more than you can chew.
Beyond just picking a community based on its stated purpose or data feeds, there are specific factors about its internal dynamics, how it actually operates, that deserve scrutiny. What should an organization consider regarding these dynamics?
Absolutely. Understanding the ongoing community dynamics is vital before joining and while participating. You should look carefully at several things. Its size and composition. How many members are there? What's the ratio of producers to consumers? Is it dominated by a few large players? How active is the community? Look at metrics like submissions or requests per day. Is it vibrant or dormant? What's the recruitment and scrutiny process for new members? Is it easy to join, or is there careful vetting? What are the general technical skills and proficiencies of the participants? Will you be among peers? What governance model does the community follow? Is it clear how decisions are made and rules enforced?
What about costs and agreements?
Yes, consider the initial and sustained cost for membership. Are there fees? What internal resources are required? What type of sharing agreement is used? NDA, MOU, formal contract. And crucially, does that agreement align with your organization's own goals, objectives, and business rules? Finally, understand their data retention and disposal policies. How long is data kept? How is it securely deleted?
How can you get a real feel for the community beyond just reading its charter?
It's always wise to perform thorough due diligence by actually communicating with present and former participants, if possible. Ask about their experiences, the value they received, and their assessment of the community's overall trustworthiness and effectiveness. The key insight here is that a sharing community is much more than just its technical feeds or its website. It's a living ecosystem whose health, value, and trustworthiness depend heavily on these internal dynamics.
So once you've done your due diligence and joined a community, membership isn't passive. It requires ongoing engagement to get the real value. How does an organization participate effectively day to day?
Ongoing communication and active participation are absolutely the lifeblood of these communities. You can't just passively consume. Organizations use various methods: emails, secure texts or chats, dedicated web portals to receive and share threat information. However, Remember that content acquired manually might require internal processing before it's actionable. Organizations that have mature security tools supporting standard data formats, like S2 tags TWI, can leverage standards-based data feeds for more semi-automated consumption and integration, which is much more efficient.
Is it all digital, or is there a place for face-to-face interaction?
Beyond the digital channels, other activities are often important. Things like attending community conferences, participating in workshops, or joining regular calls build relationships and trust. Of course, these require allocating staff time, travel budgets, and other associated costs. Communications within a community can be event-driven, responding rapidly to a specific emerging threat, or periodic, like scheduled weekly reviews, video conferences, or teleconferences to discuss recent trends.
What about new members? How do they get up to speed?
That's a critical point. For new members, there's inevitably an integration period. They need time to understand the community's norms, integrate the new threat intelligence feeds, possibly configure security tools to use the data, and train their internal decision makers on how to interpret and act on the information. During this period, new members should actively seek guidance from the community administrators or experienced members, leverage shared knowledge resources like wikis or FAQs, and not hesitate to ask questions. Querying community resources like blogs or forums can also be very helpful. Ultimately, engaging in this ongoing communication and contribution is what builds trust, strengthens bonds between members, and leads to continuous improvement in collective security practices.
A primary output of these communities, and often a key benefit for joining, is receiving security alerts. How should organizations consume and act on these alerts effectively?
Right. Threat information sharing communities regularly publish security alerts to notify their partners about emerging threats, newly discovered vulnerabilities, active exploits, and other significant security issues. These alerts are crucial inputs for implementing timely security rules and configurations to protect systems and sensitive data like financial records or PII. A typical security alert usually includes several key fields, a brief executive summary or maybe a link to a detailed report with specific IOCs, information on the platforms affected, OS, hardware, software, applications, and estimation of the potential impact, e.g. risks to BYOD devices, system crashes, potential for hijacking, data exfiltration, a level of severity, often using a standard like the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS, recommended remediation rules, permanent fixes or temporary workarounds, references for more detailed information, and alert metadata like creation modification dates, acknowledgments.
That's a lot of potentially critical information arriving. What are the immediate crucial action steps an organization should take after receiving such an alert?
First and foremost, before doing anything else, an organization must determine if the alert originates from a trusted and reliable source within the community. Verification is paramount. If the alert comes from an unknown, unreliable, or untrusted source, extreme caution is necessary. You should seek independent confirmation from other sources before taking any potentially disruptive action based solely on that alert. If the alert is deemed trustworthy and the threat or vulnerability is relevant to your organization's assets, its applications, systems, or hardware, then the next step is to determine the most appropriate course of action to mitigate the identified threats. This rapid assessment and response based on trusted alerts is crucial for effective defense. The critical insight here is that an alert is only as good as its source's credibility, and your speed of assessment and action determines its ultimate value.
Alerts often contain those raw indicators we talked about, IPs, hashes, domains. How do we take those specific indicators, consume them efficiently, and turn them into something truly useful for our systems and operational teams?
That's a critical step, turning raw indicators into actionable intelligence for your environment. It's typically a multi-step process, especially for indicators coming from external TI feeds. It often starts with validation, verifying the integrity of the content and the origin, perhaps using digital signatures or cryptographic hashes provided by the source. Then, decryption, if the files or data streams were encrypted for transit, followed by decompression, if the files were packed or zipped. Next is content extraction, parsing the data to pull out the specific indicators of interest, IPs, domains, hashes, etc. After extraction comes prioritization, processing the indicators based on factors like severity level, the reliability of the data source, the source's overall assessed value, your own operational requirements, and even the effort required to transform or integrate the indicator. Not all indicators are created equal. Finally, categorization, determining the appropriate security designation and handling requirements for the indicator and associated data. For example, sensitive info might need to be stored encrypted with robust access controls.
That sounds like quite a pipeline before an indicator's even ready for use. Is there flexibility in this order? Does it always have to happen exactly like that?
While there's a typical logical order, it can certainly vary based on specific operational or security requirements. You might prioritize certain high-confidence indicators faster, for instance. It's also crucial during this process to evaluate the information for precision and relevance to your environment, and potentially assign internal tags, like quality scores or confidence levels, to help guide downstream actions. Once processed, organizations use these indicators from both internal discovery and external feeds in many ways. To update rules and signatures for security devices like firewalls, IDS, honeypots, and data loss prevention (DLP) systems. To configure CM solutions for better log analysis and alerting. To proactively scan internal networks for systems that might already be compromised by these indicators. To search for matching records during active incident investigations. To provide valuable context and additional information to SOC analysts handling alerts. To educate staff about the characteristics of current threats, and to enhance overall security controls by analyzing trends revealed by the indicators. The key consideration throughout is to carefully assess each indicator's characteristics and use a risk-based approach to determine how, when, and where it should be utilized. Some indicators are only useful in very specific situations or have a very short lifespan.
What about those organizations with more mature security capabilities? They don't just consume intelligence, they also contribute back and publish their own indicators. What's involved on the production side?
That's a great point. Producing and publishing your own indicators offers substantial benefits beyond just consuming. Organizations gain deeper expertise, they actively help protect others in their community, they often respond more effectively to threats they've analyzed themselves, and crucially, they establish trust and credibility as valuable partners by contributing back. As a producer, key decisions revolve around the data formats you'll use, how you'll handle any sensitive information embedded in your findings, and how your internal information sharing rules might need modification to allow for external publication.
What elements need to be addressed to do this effectively and responsibly?
3 main elements are key for producers. First, indicator enrichment. Simply publishing a raw IOC isn't that helpful. Published threat indicators must include metadata that provides context. This context explains how the indicator should be used, how it should be interpreted, its relationship to other indicators or a larger campaign, its sensitivity level, its origin, perhaps the tools used to find it, and any processing applied. You also need to re-examine classification and sensitivity before publishing. The production process itself needs robust mechanisms for collecting findings, publishing them, updating them if needed, and rechecking submissions for quality. And crucially, a feedback mechanism for consumers of your indicators is vital. They need a way to submit error reports, suggestions for improvement, or requests for more information. This feedback loop improves the quality of the indicators you produce over time.
So a continuous cycle of enrichment and improvement, even for the producers, makes sense. What else?
Second, standard data formats. We keep coming back to this, but it's essential. Exchanging indicators in a standard format like STIX significantly improves interoperability and enables faster, automated information exchange, reducing the need for manual human assistance on the receiving end. Organizations that produce intelligence should actively contribute to the development and refinement of these standards by providing feedback on attack use cases, desired features, and real-world experiences. Use formats and protocols that support your use cases, have broad adoption, are mature, and ensure interoperability. Third, protection of sensitive data. Even when publishing indicators, they might still contain sensitive data, maybe related to the victim environment or internal tools that requires protection from unauthorized access or modification by recipients. Methods for protection include using encrypted networks for transmission, strong authentication and authorization for access, and maintaining hardened, secure repositories for the data. Specific sharing rules must be followed, perhaps sharing more sensitive indicator details only with the most trusted community members. The nugget here is that publishing intelligence isn't just about outputting raw data. It's about carefully curating a valuable, contextualized, properly formatted, and appropriately protected asset for the benefit of the entire community.
Looking outward now, beyond specific communities, what about sharing with the broader external community or even directly with government agencies? What are the considerations there?
Sharing more broadly with external communities or government organizations offers mutual benefits. Both the producers sharing the information and the consumers receiving it benefit from maintaining better awareness of the dynamic threat landscape and building stronger collective defenses. However, it requires a very careful, considered approach. It's absolutely crucial to understand what intelligence is appropriate to share with, say, a single trusted partner versus what's suitable for broadcasting to a wide audience. Oversharing certain types of intelligence could inadvertently warn adversaries or reveal sensitive operational details.
So relying on informal personal networks probably isn't scalable or secure enough for this.
Exactly. Informal personal networks, while useful, are not scalable or robust enough for consistent broad sharing. Efficient frameworks are needed. These frameworks should include things like standard reporting terminology, formats, and defined processes. Ideally, some form of indemnification against liability for good faith information sharing, often provided by legislation like CTIA. The ability for users to create specific circles of trusted partners, allowing them to specify sharing parameters, which data elements get shared, how, when, where, and with precisely whom. Granular control is key. And of course, the underlying technical infrastructure capable of supporting machine speed sharing and analysis.
What methods are typically used for this broader external sharing?
Methods vary widely. It could range from private P2P meetings or calls between trusted entities to dedicated wiki-type websites or secure forums, email lists or message boards, secure document management sites, APIs for automated data download, and even secure access-controlled social networking platforms designed for threat intelligence sharing.
At the heart of all this sharing, whether it's internal, within a community, or external, is one critical, perhaps fragile element: trust. How do we build it, and why is it often so complex, especially when dealing with sensitive information?
Trust is absolutely essential. It's the bedrock for effective information exchange and for stimulating confidence in the provided threat intelligence confidence that's needed before an organization will act on it. It's incredibly complex because vast amounts of potentially sensitive information are exchanged across diverse government and private organizations. Organizations often have legitimate fears about legal repercussions, competitive disadvantage, or reputation loss if sensitive information is mishandled or leaks. So, how do you build it? Solutions involve things like carefully classifying cybersecurity information, having clear legal rules and policies governing sharing, like CISPA-CISA, and perhaps most importantly, building trust incrementally through consistent, reliable acts of information sharing over time. Show, don't just tell.
It sounds like personal relationships play a big role too.
They do. It's vital to emphasize the importance of trusted personal relationships among similarly positioned professionals in different organizations. Trust takes time and consistent positive interaction to build, and it's crucial for enabling effective and efficient sharing, especially within smaller, more focused groups. Members of a sharing relationship must be capable of accessing and sharing high-quality TI, yes, but they must also be demonstrably trustworthy enough to handle that information with discretion. Organizations should actively encourage their employees to contribute responsibly to TI sharing efforts and support, or even create relevant sharing groups where appropriate.
Trust isn't just a vague feeling, though. It can be, and perhaps should be, formalized through different models, right? Can you walk us through some of the organizational trust models, perhaps referencing the NIST framework?
Indeed. Threat intelligence exchange can range from purely ad hoc arrangements to highly formalized relationships governed by detailed agreements. The approaches taken often vary based on the required level of trust, the existing relationships between stakeholders, and the legal authority involved. NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, outlines 5 useful types or models of organizational trust in this context. First, validated trust. Here, one organization uses a body of evidence gathered out of a second organization to establish trust. Trust depends on the degree and quality of that evidence, which can sometimes be difficult to obtain or might be insufficient.
Okay, evidence-based. What else?
Second, direct historical trust. This is perhaps the most common. Trust is established over time based on the past history of interactions, positive risk security activities, reliable working relationships. You trust them because they've proven trustworthy in the past. Third, mediated trust. This relies on a trusted third party. If organization X trusts intermediary Y and intermediary Y vouches for organization Z, then X might extend trust to Z based on Y's recommendation. Think of it as trust by proxy.
Like a reference check.
Exactly. Fourth, mandated trust. This occurs when a trusted third party, typically one in a position of authority, like a government agency or regulator, issues a specific mandate. One entity is effectively declared an authoritative source that others are directed or required to trust for specific purposes. And finally, fifth, hybrid trust. As the name implies, this is a combination of some or all of the other models. A large organization, for example, might use different trust models for interacting with different departments, partners, or communities based on context and sensitivity. The nugget here is that while trust itself feels intangible, understanding these models shows it's a critical component that can and indeed must be structured, managed, and consciously built within any sharing relationship.
Let's pivot now to understanding how the different types of intelligence, strategic, tactical, operational, and technical, are specifically shared in practice, and then maybe look at some practical tools and platforms that facilitate this.
Excellent idea. Let's break down sharing by intelligence type. We'll start with sharing strategic threat intelligence. Remember, this is the high-level stuff, financial impacts, broad attack trends, input for major business decisions. The consumers are typically high-level executives, IT management, CISOs. The format is usually reports, briefings, formal meetings, maybe even one-on-one conversations. Importantly, this type of intelligence is generally not shared externally. Why? Because it could reveal sensitive strategic business plans, or it might simply be irrelevant to other organizations with different risk profiles. There's a high risk of exposing too much internal strategy. Organizations should focus on sharing other TI types externally.
Okay, keep strategic intel close to the chest. What about tactical?
Sharing tactical threat intelligence is often the most useful type for directly protecting resources day to day. This includes details on the methodologies used by threat actors, their TTPs, info on specific malware campaigns, tools they use. The consumers here are typically IT service managers, security operations managers, NOC staff, system administrators, security architects, people managing the defenses. The goal is to provide greater insight into how attacks are actually performed, enabling the development of more effective mitigation and detection strategies. Sharing tactical intelligence widely within a trusted community helps all members, and it often encourages others to share similar reports, leading to collaborated benefit. An example would be a detailed incident report including observed TTPs and tools used.
And what about sharing operational and technical intelligence? How does that work?
Sharing operational threat intelligence involves sharing actionable intelligence about specific incoming attacks, often collected by predicting attacks based on precursor activity. Consumers are usually higher-level security staff responsible for proactive defense. The purpose is to mitigate attacks in advance, maybe by removing attack paths, hardening specific systems identified as targets. A detailed operational report might include expected attack behavior, the identity of the suspected actor, their assessed capability, and sometimes even intelligence suggesting when the attack might occur. Sharing this kind of intelligence provides valuable advance warning to other members of a sharing community. An example might be using a platform like CSEP, the UK's Cybersecurity Information Sharing Partnership, to warn a specific organization about a planned attack targeting them.
That's very specific. And technical intelligence sharing.
Finally, sharing technical threat intelligence. This focuses on specific technical details, mainly threat indicators about an attacker's resources, the IOCs we've mentioned, IPs, domains, hashes, etc. Consumers are typically SOC staff and incident response teams who plug these directly into security tools. The purpose is to enhance endpoint devices and security controls by blocking known bad infrastructure or detecting known malicious files. These indicators are usually precise, common, and repeatable, at least for a time. Technical intelligence should generally be shared as widely as possible, often via public forums like abuse.seers or certain open feeds, trusted third parties, or direct sharing agreements. It usually carries less risk of exposing sensitive organizational data compared to strategic or tactical intel. Automated sharing of machine-readable formats is highly encouraged here to allow for easy parsing and integration by recipients' tools. Adapting to open standards like STIX is key for this.
You also mentioned Yara rules earlier in a different context. How do they fit specifically into sharing intelligence?
Yara rules are a very practical way to share certain types of technical intelligence. Sharing intelligence using Yara rules facilitates easier and faster consumption by recipients and directly enhances their cybersecurity posture, particularly around malware detection. Remember, Yara is that open-source tool allowing researchers to detect, classify, and share malware data using rules based on binary or textual patterns found in malicious files. These rules can be integrated with platforms like VirusTotal Intelligence for detecting, blocking, and sharing malware signatures. They can also be embedded within STIX objects to share indicators along with detection logic. Many threat intelligence platforms like Threat Connect or MISP directly support importing, creating, and sharing Yara rules. Its simple C-like syntax allows for creating quite sophisticated rules to describe malware families based on complex conditions. For example, presence of specific strings at the certain file size and a specific section hash. Sharing a good Yara rule can be a very effective way to distribute detection capability.
And what about it-isac? Information Technology, Information Security, and Analysis Center, how does that function as a sharing mechanism?
The it-isac is a prime example of a formal, sector-specific sharing community. It's a nonprofit corporation, specifically for members within the information technology sector, to collaboratively manage risks and strengthen the overall IT infrastructure through dedicated cyber information sharing and analysis. Its benefits include knowledge-sharing members interact with peers under strict NDA rules to share non-public details about threats, incidents, best practices, and vulnerabilities relevant to the IT sector. Its operations center provides a trusted point of contact for coordinating information sharing, especially prior to and during major incidents affecting the sector. And it also provides access to information on physical security threats, non-cyber threats like physical attacks or natural disasters that could impact the IT sector's infrastructure. It serves as a specialized, trusted forum for a critical infrastructure sector.
Now that we've covered the different types of intelligence and various means of sharing, how is this intelligence actually delivered? And what technical standards make reliable automated delivery possible?
Understanding the effective delivery mechanisms and the standard data formats and protocols is absolutely crucial if you want to meet consumer requirements effectively. Delivery isn't one size fits all. There are several common forms of delivery. Simple common alerts or notifications, think phone calls for critical issues, secure messages, or emails. Detailed reports, often human-readable documents, potentially rich content with tables, graphics, multimedia. Machine-readable data feeds designed for direct ingestion by security tools like SIEM, antivirus, firewalls, etc., using standard structured notation like it-isac over TAC2. Custom-designed output formatted specifically for certain internal systems. Application programming interfaces, APIs, that allow systems to directly connect, retrieve, and query intelligence repositories programmatically. And safe and secure online portals that provide on-demand access to intelligence databases and sometimes analytical functions. Each form has its pros and cons. Descriptive human-readable reports are easier for people to understand initially, but they can be complex and time-consuming to convert into rules for machine execution. That's where MRTI comes in.
You mentioned machine-readable data feeds. Let's dive deeper into machine-readable threat intelligence, MRTI. What is it exactly, and why is it so important for automation?
MRTI represents the capability for your security controls, SIEM, IDSIPs, firewalls, endpoint agents to make operational security decisions automatically based on current threat landscape information fed directly into them. It acts as a direct data feed designed explicitly for automated prevention and detection systems. It's typically based on standard structured threat intelligence notation, often using formats like XML or JSON, designed for both machine parsing and, ideally, human readability to some extent. MRTI primarily focuses on the tactical and technical levels of intelligence, concentrating on those indicators of compromise, IOCs, derived from forensic investigations. Domain names, URLs, IP addresses, file hashes, registry keys, malicious HTTP requests, etc. Combining these IOCs in a structured way helps analysts understand the anatomy of an attack.
How does the data flow typically work for MRTI?
Generally, raw data observed from sources like internet sensors or web crawlers is collected, analyzed, and then transformed into a standard format, most commonly STIX, Structured Threat Information Expression. This structured STIX data is then disseminated using a standard transport protocol, usually TAC-seq Trusted Automated Exchange of Indicator Information. This STXT-TXT combination helps solve key challenges, detecting major threats faster, classifying them consistently, removing duplicate information, providing awareness of related variants, and crucially, formatting the data for both automation by security tools and providing context for human analysts.
How is MRTI typically integrated into security tools?
There are several approaches. Direct integration via an API, where the security tool queries an intelligence source using formats like JSON, XML, or CSV. Using an API combined with libraries or SDKs, software development kits, provided by the intelligence vendor, which might include bundled scripts to ease integration, or through pre-built platform integrations, where intelligence platforms or security tools like Splunk Enterprise, ArcSight ESM, Maltego have native capabilities to ingest specific MRTI feeds, often using STIX TAC-HA. The impact of this integration is significant. MRTI can feed into threat intelligence platforms, TIPs, for correlation and human analysis, or directly into a SIEM for associating external threat activity with internal logs. Critically, it can be used to automatically update security controls like firewall rules, DNS block lists, and web content filters in near real time.
And what about the specific standards and formats for sharing threat intelligence that make all this MRTI and interoperability possible? You've mentioned SDX and TAC-TI a few times.
Yes. Common standards are absolutely necessary for this ecosystem to function effectively. They enhance interoperability and enable timely dissemination. While unstructured formats like plain text or emails are fine for high-level human reports, structured formats are crucial for the automatic configuration of security controls, significantly reducing the need for manual intervention and speeding up response. Organizations really should participate in the development and promotion of these standards.
Let's revisit the Traffic Light Protocol, TLP, first, as it's about handling, not structure.
Right. TLP facilitates greater sharing by providing clear handling guidance. It's that set of 4 color designations: red, amber, green, white, used to ensure sensitive information is shared only with the appropriate audience, based on the sensitivity and the need to know. TLP R8E is the most restricted. Information is not for disclosure outside the immediate meeting or conversation, restricted to participants only, typically shared verbally or in person. TLP.amber. Limited disclosure. Restricted to the participants' own organizations and potentially clients or customers who need to know to protect themselves. The source can specify additional limits. TLP Green. Trusted disclosure. Restricted to a specific community. Information can be shared with peers and partners within that defined sector or community, but not publicly. TLP White. Unlimited disclosure. No restrictions on sharing, subject only to standard copyright rules. There are conventions on how to indicate the TLP level in emails. Subject line, body and documents. Header footer. TLP is optimized for human readability and decision-making, not primarily for automated exchange, but it's a vital handling guideline.
That color coding is so important for quick context. Now onto the technical standards that underpin MRTI, particularly from MITer.
The standards developed by MITer, a nonprofit R&D organization, are foundational for modern CTI sharing. Let's break them down. CyBUX, Cyber Observable Expression. Think of this as the detailed, standardized vocabulary for describing things you observe on a network or host indicators, specific events, system configurations. It provides a high-fidelity way to encode observables for various cybersecurity use cases like TI, malware analysis, SIEM event correlation, incident response, and forensics. It's about describing the what, STAX, Structured Threat Information Expression. This is the comprehensive language and serialization format, usually JSON now, for exchanging the entire CTI narrative. It enables consistent, machine-readable sharing of complex threat information. STIce doesn't just describe observables, it uses CyBUX for that, or now has its own objects. It connects them to describe attack patterns, campaigns, courses of action, identities, indicators, intrusion sets, malware, observed data, reports, threat actors, tools, and vulnerabilities. It tells the whole story, the who, what, when, where, why, and how.
So CyBUX is the vocabulary, STS is the story. How does the story get delivered?
That's where TAC2 Trusted Automated Exchange of Indicator Information comes in. TAC2 is an application layer protocol specifically designed for communicating CTI, usually STIX data, over HTTPS. It defines how CTI producers and consumers can interact. TAC2 defines 2 main services: a collection service, a request-response model like pulling data from a repository, and a channel service, a publish-subscribe model where data is pushed out to subscribers. It handles the secure transport and exchange logistics. Then there's MAEC, Malware Attribute Enumeration and Characterization, a structured language specifically for encoding and sharing detailed information about malware, its behaviors, artifacts, relationships between variants. It aims to eliminate ambiguity in malware descriptions, reduce reliance on simple signatures, improve communication between analysts, and accelerate countermeasure development. And CAPEX, Common Attack Pattern Enumeration and Classification. This is a public catalog and taxonomy of common attack patterns adversaries use. It helps analysts, developers, and testers understand how attackers operate at a tactical level and how to build better defenses. Examples include well-known patterns like HTTP response splitting, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, XSS, and buffer overflows. The insight here is that these MITer standards aren't just technical specifications. They are fundamentally the common languages and transport mechanisms that allow diverse security systems and human analysts across different organizations to finally speak to each other clearly and efficiently about complex cyber threats.
That's a deep dive into the MITre ecosystem. Are there other important standards groups or specific formats we should be aware of?
Yes, there are others. The Managed Incident Lightweight Exchange, MILE working group within the IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force, focuses on data formats and transport protocols for secure incident exchange. Key standards from MILE include IODF, Incident Object Description and Exchange Format, an XML-based format specifically designed for sharing computer security incident information between computer security incident response teams, CDS. It enhances operational capabilities by allowing increased automation and improved collaboration during incident handling. IODF CI, IOD for structured cybersecurity information, an extension to IOD that increases machine readability by allowing the embedding of standard cybersecurity identifiers like CVE, common vulnerabilities and exposures, numbers in OVAL, open vulnerability and assessment language definitions directly within the incident description, and RD, real-time inter-network defense. This outlines a proactive inter-network communication method for sharing incident handling data in near real time, integrating detection, tracing, source identification, and mitigation efforts across networks.
Okay, Mile focuses on incident exchange. Any others?
A few more worth mentioning. VIRES, vocabulary for event recording and incident sharing. This provides a set of metrics and a common language for describing security incidents in a structured, repeatable manner. It helps organizations collect detailed incident data and share it, often anonymously, for broader analysis and trend identification. And IDMF, Intrusion Detection Message Exchange Format. This is a standard data format specifically designed for automated intrusion detection systems, IDS, to report suspicious events to a central management system. Its goal is interoperability among different IDS products, commercial, open source, research. It's useful for centralizing alert data, enabling event correlation, and providing input for common graphical user interfaces, GUIs. These various standards are what truly enable the automated cross-organizational exchange of different types of security intelligence, turning isolated events or findings into a more connected, actionable narrative for defenders.
All these standards and the need for collaboration naturally point towards dedicated platforms designed for this purpose. Let's explore some of the key threat intelligence sharing platforms that bring this all together.
Exactly. These platforms are essential infrastructure for exchanging TI efficiently, particularly among critical infrastructure entities like finance, IT, energy, public utilities, to help them learn from each other's experiences and enhance their collective security posture. Their core functionality is to allow authenticated users to gather intelligence from various sources, manage it, enrich it, and share it both structured, like SPIX IOCs, and unstructured, like reports or analysis, with trusted partners or communities.
Can you name some specific platforms that people might encounter?
Sure, there are many, both commercial and open source. Some prominent examples include Bluelift Threat Exchange Network. This platform focuses on protecting enterprises and the broader community by sharing IOCs, IPs, URLs, file hashes. It offers ecosystem features like a cyber threat map and a malware analysis sandbox. Users can publish sparks containing indicators, classify them with tags, and interact socially within the community. Anomalies DXX. This provides an easy way to subscribe to any STX-TXT intelligence feed. It also offers powerful searching capabilities across feeds and access to an online portal for more advanced investigation, often provided as a free tool to encourage TXT adoption. MISP, Malware Information Sharing Platform. This is a widely used open source platform. It's designed for gathering, sharing, storing, and correlating IOCs related to targeted attacks, general threat intelligence, financial fraud indicators, vulnerabilities, and even counterterrorism information.
MISP sounds quite comprehensive for open source. What are its key features?
MISP has a rich feature set. It supports automated data sharing and synchronization between instances. It provides an efficient IOC database with correlation features, including fuzzy hashing, like STEEP, to find related samples. It offers various export functionalities to integrate its data with other security systems, like SIEMs or IDs. And it allows for flexible sharing models, including delegating sharing permissions to trusted partners. Its open nature has led to broad adoption.
Okay, what are some other platforms?
Fireware Threat Intelligence Exchange, CTIX, a commercial platform focused on being a centralized hub for rapid detection and response. It exchanges structured CTI, IOCs, in various formats, SDIX, SciBox, and heavily leverages STCAX-TAC feeds for aggregation, automation, and real-time sharing. It boasts features like threat data aggregation from multiple sources, calculating an aggregated confidence score for indicators, rule-based alerting, cloud or on-prem support, advanced integration capabilities, and an AI-based analyzer. Sultra Edge. This was software developed initially by FSI-SEEK and DTCC to automate the sharing, receiving, validating, and acting on threat intelligence, specifically using SeekTax2. It aimed to enable an end-to-end community defense model, shifting organizations from reactive to proactive postures. Note, Sultra Edge development has ceased, but the concepts remain relevant. And there are many others worth a quick mention. Alien Vault OTX, now AT&T Cybersecurity. IBM X-Force Exchange, IOC Bucket, McAfee Threat Intelligence Exchange, TI. The U.S. government's Automated Indicator Sharing AIS platform. Abuse Helper, Abuse.io, YaraShare, Yeti, OpenTPX, Fidelis Barncat, Crits, MindMeld, open source from Palo Alto Networks, Meta's Threat Exchange, Threat Connect. The list goes on. The insight here is that these platforms are the operational hubs where standards, rules, and collaboration come together to enable active defense based on shared intelligence. Choosing the right platform depends heavily on an organization's specific needs, resources, and the communities they participate in.
Finally, we really can't discuss intelligence sharing adequately without touching on the legal and regulatory frameworks that govern it, especially in the U.S. context. What are the key acts and regulations here?
Right, legal frameworks are crucial. They aim to ensure a secure flow of information, protect sensitive data like personally identifiable information, PII, from unauthorized access or use, provide liability protections to encourage sharing, and sometimes set guidelines for security clearance approvals needed to access certain government intelligence. Two significant U.S. acts are the Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act, the ISPA. Though it faced challenges and wasn't fully enacted in its original form, its concepts influenced later legislation, and the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act, CSA of 2015.
Let's talk about CSPA first, even if its path was complicated. What was its core idea?
CSPA's core idea was to direct the federal government to provide real-time sharing of actionable, situational cyber threat intelligence among federal cyber operations centers. It aimed to amend the National Security Act of 1947 to explicitly allow the intelligence community to share classified and unclassified CTI with private sector entities that held appropriate certifications or security clearances. It also authorized cybersecurity providers, with user consent, to obtain network traffic information and share specific threat information with designated government entities like DHS, DOJ, and other private companies for cybersecurity purposes. Critically, it included requirements for federal agencies to establish procedures for real-time sharing, collaboration, and adherence to strict use and protection rules, including anonymization or minimization of PII, prohibitions on using shared data for competitive advantage, exemptions from public disclosure laws like FOIA, and prohibitions on using the data for unrelated regulatory purposes. Permitted federal uses were strictly defined. Cybersecurity purposes, investigating specific cybercrimes, protecting individuals from imminent harm, and prosecuting related crimes. It specifically prohibited affirmative searching of the data for other unrelated purposes. Privacy concerns were a major point of debate around CSPA.
Okay, so it focused on enabling sharing between government and cleared private entities with privacy safeguards, though controversial. What about CISA, which was enacted?
The Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act, or CISA, enacted in December 2015, has a broader scope. It explicitly authorizes voluntary cybersecurity information sharing between the private sector, state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, and the federal government. It also establishes clear provisions for protecting the information shared, critically including requirements related to PII. CISA required the federal government to release guidance and best practices for sharing. It identifies the permitted uses of shared cyber threat indicators and defensive measures, while also placing restrictions on their disclosure, retention, and use by government entities. Importantly, CISA authorizes sharing with liability protection for organizations that share information according to the Act's provisions, removing a major barrier to sharing. It requires private entities to review and remove identified PII from information before sharing it with the federal government. And federal agencies receiving information containing PII must protect it according to guidelines developed by DHS and the Attorney General. Both acts, despite their differences, aim to foster more robust information sharing to combat cyber threats, while attempting to build in crucial protections against misuse and address privacy concerns. The nugget here is that even with the best intentions and technical standards, intelligence sharing needs explicit legal guardrails to build the necessary trust and prevent unintended consequences in our interconnected world.
#IV. Overview of threat intelligence integration. Okay, we've journeyed through producing intelligence, crafting reports, sharing it through various communities and platforms, understanding the rules and standards. Now for the final, crucial step, integration. This is about making all that gathered intelligence actually work within our existing security systems. Why is this integration piece so vital?
It's vital because integration is where the rubber meets the road. It's the process of embedding threat intelligence directly into your operational security controls. Think SIEM systems, identity and access management, IAM systems, vulnerability management tools, network security devices like firewalls and IDSFs, endpoint security agents. Integrating TI into these controls allows organizations to detect threats faster, block malicious activity automatically, investigate incidents more effectively, and mitigate risks more rapidly and efficiently. The overall goal is to leverage intelligence to better understand the nature of the threats you face, make more informed risk management and business decisions, and ultimately fulfill your strategic security goals more effectively. Without integration, intelligence remains an abstract concept, an interesting report perhaps, but not a practical defense mechanism for you in real time.
So it's about moving from knowing to doing, automating the defenses. Let's look at the direct benefits. How does this integration transform security operations in practice?
Precisely. The core idea is that automating security devices by integrating relevant TI helps organizations predict threats where possible, prevent known badness, detect intrusions faster, and respond to incidents more quickly and efficiently. This automation is critical for achieving timely, cost-effective mitigation in today's fast-paced threat environment. A main goal is often to automate the routine, high-volume tasks like blocking known malicious IPs or hashes or prioritizing vulnerability patching based on active exploitation threats. This frees up your valuable human security teams to focus on the more complex, novel, and challenging security issues that require human expertise.
How does tailoring feeds play into this?
It's crucial to subscribe to and integrate threat feeds that are specific and relevant to your organization's systems, networks, industry sector, or geographical location. Generic feeds can create a lot of noise. Tailored feeds help automate vulnerability discovery more effectively and prioritize patching based on real-world threats targeting your specific environment. For example, if you receive a high-confidence alert about a vulnerability in an application you actually use being actively exploited, an automated workflow, or at least a high-priority alert, could be triggered to get that patch deployed immediately.
What are the measurable benefits of doing this well?
When done well, integration significantly decreases the mean time to find vulnerabilities, MTTV, and recover from incidents, MTTR, reduces overall organizational risk exposure, reduces the overall response time needed to handle vulnerabilities and active attacks, helps thwart threat actors from successfully repeating the same attacks against you, automatically feeds relevant threat information into security dashboards and reports for better visibility, reduces human errors often associated with manually configuring security systems based on threat reports, and simplifies the security change management process, making it more intelligent and quicker. The nugget here is that integration is where the abstract concept of threat intelligence becomes an active, fighting force multiplier within your organization's defenses.
It sounds powerful, but integration probably isn't a single switch you just flip on. It involves querying the data, formatting it correctly, and understanding the confidence levels. How exactly do we integrate CTI effectively into an environment?
You're right. It's a process. First, you absolutely must query, customize, and filter the intelligence. Raw threat feeds often contain a lot of data, not all of which is relevant or high confidence. Threat intelligence must be customized to your organization's specific security requirements and risk profile. The ability to query feeds and filter them allows you to remove redundant, inaccurate, or irrelevant data before it hits your operational systems.
What are some use cases for this querying and filtering?
Sample use cases include translating data from a feed format into the specific format required by your SIEM, IDs, or firewall, enriching indicators with internal context, example, which assets are vulnerable, integrating indicators into higher-level intelligence products or incident reports, designing custom tools or scripts around the data, integrating indicators with data from previous incidents to spot campaigns, or feeding curated data into external analytics platforms. APIs, application programming interfaces, are absolutely crucial here. They provide the programmatic methods needed to manage, modify, filter, and manipulate raw threat data from feeds before or during integration.
Okay, filtering and customizing is key. What about getting it into the systems?
Second is format and delivery. As we discussed, delivery mechanisms for threat feeds vary. Organizations must ensure their systems can handle the format and delivery method of the feeds they subscribe to. Intelligence suppliers sometimes provide dedicated appliances or software to help manage delivery and formatting. Threat data ideally should be delivered in a formal, structured, machine-readable threat intelligence (MRTI) format, like SDIX. The ease of use and the effectiveness of integration depend heavily on the delivery method and, critically, the data format. Having a specific machine-understandable format that your security systems, SIEM, firewall, EDR, can efficiently consume is crucial for timely action.
And finally, a very important aspect you touched on, confidence. How does that play into integration?
Yes, confidence scores are vital. We generally look at two types of confidence associated with threat intelligence. Detection confidence. This is the likelihood that a security alert triggered by a specific threat indicator represents a true positive, a genuine threat event, rather than a false alarm. Higher detection confidence means you can trust the alert more. Attribution confidence. This relates to the metadata often accompanying an indicator. It's how confident the source of the intelligence is that the observed activity or indicator is related to a specific threat actor, campaign, or set of TTPs as described in the metadata. Having high confidence scores in both detection and attribution ensures the intelligence being integrated is reliable and trustworthy, allowing for more decisive automated actions or analyst responses. The nugget here is that without understanding and leveraging confidence scores, even perfectly integrated intelligence can lead to alert fatigue from false positives, paralysis due to uncertainty, or worse, misdirection by acting strongly on low confidence data.
Once we have this relevant, formatted, high-confidence intelligence integrated into our systems, what actions should an organization typically take to get the maximum benefit? What are the primary courses of action triggered by this intel?
Generally, integrated intelligence triggers two primary courses of action within an organization's security processes. First is escalation.
Escalation, meaning passing it up the chain.
It can mean that, but not always. There's horizontal escalation. This involves employing additional resources or expertise without necessarily involving higher management. For example, maybe the initial SOC analyst lacks the specific skills to handle the alert, or the agreed-upon time for initial incident escalation has expired, so it gets passed to a Tier 2 analyst or a specialized team. Then there's vertical escalation. This does involve bringing in higher-level management for awareness or key decisions. This usually happens when an incident is beyond the scope or skill set of the current responders, requires significant resources, or needs higher authority for actions like system shutdowns or external communication. And there's also vendor escalation. Sometimes incidents need to be escalated to specific hardware or software vendors, for instance, if an investigation is halted due to insufficient internal expertise on that product or a gap in intelligence that the vendor might possess. The goal of escalation is always to ensure the right people with the right authority and skills are engaged promptly.
Okay, so escalation ensures the right response level. What's the second primary course of action driven by integrated intelligence?
The second, and often more automated course of action, is direct integration into security controls for immediate action. Those machine-readable formats like STIX-TAC2 enable direct integration of indicators into network security controls, IDSIPs, next-gen firewalls, web gateways, and endpoint security devices, EDR, AV. This enables automated monitoring, blocking, and alerting. You can utilize indicators to automatically monitor for related activity, actively block malicious traffic associated with known bad IPs or domains on devices like proxies and firewalls, and generate high-priority alerts for investigation. And for detection, you can install indicators as malicious signatures in IDSIP systems, configure them as specific alert rules in SIEM systems, or deploy them as host-based signatures for endpoint security tools to hunt for infections. Crucially, these integration methods also directly support the feedback loop we discussed earlier by providing accurate metrics, e.g. how many times was this indicator blocked, did it correlate with internal logs, for evaluating the effectiveness and relevance of the TI feeds. However, remember, timeliness is absolutely key here. You must act on intelligence before it loses significance. Indicators, especially network-based ones, often have a very short lifespan. Using outdated indicators generates false alarms, wastes analyst time, and can misguide investigations. Action must be prompt to be effective.
Let's delve a bit deeper now into how the different types of intelligence, tactical, operational, and strategic, specifically support different functions within an organization once integrated. Starting with how tactical intelligence supports IT operations. Things like blocking, patching, and alert triage.
Right. Tactical threat intelligence, when properly integrated, significantly enhances daily IT operations. It improves detection and blocking capabilities, supports more timely and risk-based patching, and helps Security Operations Center, SOC teams, triage the flood of alerts more effectively. Let's look at the Network Operations Center, NOC, first. Their job often includes managing security technologies like anti-malware gateways, firewalls, IDSS, secure web gateways, SWGs, devices that use rules and intelligence to block malicious activity. However, poor quality or irrelevant TI can lead to blocking legitimate traffic, false positives, causing business disruption. Integrated tactical TI helps the NOC by validating and prioritizing indicators like malicious domain names, IPs, malware signatures based on relevance and confidence. This reduces false positives, enabling more efficient and reliable blocking. It also provides NOC analysts with context about complex attacks and actors, helping them build more effective custom rules when needed.
And for the teams responsible for patching systems.
For IT infrastructure teams, tactical intelligence helps prioritize patching. We all know patch management can be incredibly time-consuming, and teams often struggle to decide which vulnerabilities to fix first among the hundreds or thousands released. Tactical TI helps prioritize these activities by providing detailed vulnerability information, not just the CVE score, but technical details, potential effects, known exploitation methods, and tools used by attackers. Crucially, it provides insight into current threat actor activities, which vulnerabilities are actively being exploited in the wild, which techniques are being used, and who the likely targets are. This allows teams to mitigate the most immediate threats first and perhaps deprioritize patching vulnerabilities that are not currently relevant or actively exploited.
And for the SOC teams dealing with endless alerts.
For SOC teams, tactical intelligence is invaluable for triage for alerts. SOC professionals are constantly monitoring SIEM alerts, trying to classify them for escalation, deeper investigation, or discard as false positives. They're often overwhelmed by the sheer volume. Integrated TI helps prioritize these events and creates better situational awareness by automatically adding risk scores, confidence levels, or relevant tags like targeted industry to indicators within the scene. This allows the scene itself to classify and surface the highest priority alerts, permitting SIEM systems or SOC analysts to easily pivot from an alert to access linked TI knowledge repositories for immediate contextual data about the indicator or related TTPs. For example, configuring the SIEM to flag malware known to target your specific sector as high priority and automatically retrieve contextual info about the campaign. This automates many of the time-consuming initial investigation steps, allowing analysts to focus on genuine threats faster. The core insight here is that integrated tactical intelligence brings immediate, actionable clarity and prioritization to the often chaotic daily grind of IT operations.
Okay, that covers tactical support for operations. Next, how does operational intelligence support incident response teams for faster reaction and remediation during an active incident?
Operational threat intelligence is absolutely critical during incident response. It directly supports IR teams, digital forensics investigators, and specialized investigation or fraud detection units, enabling more rapid and efficient analysis of complex attacks as they unfold. Its primary benefit is enabling enhanced and rapid attack analysis. When an incident occurs, the IR team faces a barrage of urgent questions. Who is attacking us? What tactics are they using? What assets are targeted? How far they progressed? Which systems are affected? Was data stolen? What mitigation actions should we take now? Often the initial information is limited, maybe just a malware signature or a suspicious IP address. Without operational intelligence, manually researching these initial indicators to get context can take days, giving adversaries valuable time to achieve their objectives. Integrated operational TI dramatically accelerates the IR process by providing rich contextual information linked to those initial indicators, technical details of the malware or tools, their likely impact, past history of the actor or campaign, typical targets, known command and control infrastructure, etc. This helps analysts quickly understand the nature of the attack, potentially uncover previously unknown-related attacks, and recognize multiple seemingly isolated events as part of a larger, complex campaign. It essentially turns a single piece of evidence into a full attack narrative much more quickly.
So it speeds up understanding the what and how. What about guiding the follow-up actions?
Exactly. It's also crucial for guiding investigation and remediation activities. The insights from operational intelligence, understanding the full scope of related attacks, knowing the adversary's typical persistence mechanisms directly inform recovery decisions. Knowledge of the adversary's tactics and tools helps IR teams more effectively hunt for additional breaches, identify all compromised systems, not just the initial entry point, eradicate the attacker's footprints thoroughly, and crucially, build better, more targeted future defenses to protect against similar attacks recurring. It transforms what could be a reactive scramble into a more informed, strategic, and effective response, ensuring you're not just putting out the immediate fire, but also reinforcing the structure against future arson attempts.
Finally, let's look at the highest level. How does strategic intelligence support management in terms of making strategic investments and improving communications? This sounds like bridging that crucial gap between the technical weeds and core business decisions.
It absolutely is. Strategic intelligence, when properly curated and communicated, helps high-level executives and senior managers make more informed decisions about prioritizing security investments and enables them to understand and communicate cyber threats in meaningful business terms. First, let's consider effective investment. Management constantly faces the challenge of where to allocate limited security budgets. Should they invest in new security technologies, hire more staff, focus on training? It's a tough decision. Strategic TI provides crucial situational awareness of the evolving threat landscape that impacts the business. Things like emerging threat actors targeting their industry,
new TTPs, bypassing existing defenses, or evolving attack surfaces due to cloud adoption, mobile workforces, or social media presence. This allows CSOs and IT managers to justify investments more effectively, focusing resources on defending against the most likely and most impactful threats the organization actually faces, rather than just reacting to every alert or chasing the latest security buzzword. It also enables informed decisions to deprioritize investments against threats that are deemed irrelevant or low risk to their specific business.
That makes sense, focusing resources intelligently. What about the communication aspect, which, as we noted, can be a huge hurdle between technical teams and business leadership?
This is where strategic intelligence can be incredibly powerful for enhanced management communication. IT and security teams often struggle to escalate technical cyber issues to non-technical management in a way that resonates and prompts appropriate action. Presenting raw vulnerability data or technical attack details often doesn't work. Strategic TI helps IT managers better understand the threat actors targeting their organization or industry, and crucially, helps them explain the actors' likely motives and intents in human, relatable terms to high-level management. For example, framing a threat not just as malware, but as potential industrial espionage from a competitor trying to steal product plans, or disruption from activists aiming to humiliate the organization, or financial crime from cybercriminals seeking direct monetary gain. Most importantly, it helps IT teams translate security issues into the language of business, risks the potential for reputation damage, regulatory fines, legal liability, loss of customer trust, or direct impact on revenue streams, like downtime for online sales.
This is where, as you said, it gets really interesting because you're effectively moving the conversation from bits and bytes to the company's bottom line. You're demonstrating how cybersecurity isn't just a cost center, but a critical enabler and protector of the organization's core mission and strategic objectives. That's how you get buy-in and appropriate resources.
What an incredibly detailed journey through the intricate world of intelligence reporting, dissemination, and integration. We've truly covered the foundation. Everything from crafting those precise, audience-aware threat intelligence reports and understanding the critical human and technical dynamics of sharing, all the way to navigating the complex legal frameworks that underpin this entire ecosystem.
And we didn't just scratch the surface, did we? We delved into the crucial mechanisms, the exchange architectures, the delivery methods. We explored the technical standards like STIX, TAX2I, and TLP that make this complex exchange feasible and understandable. We talked extensively about how to build that vital element of trust, how to assess the quality of intelligence, and then critically, how to integrate that intelligence at every level, strategic, operational, and tactical, to genuinely transform an organization's security posture from simply reacting to incidents to becoming truly proactive and resilient.
This deep dive has really hammered home that threat intelligence isn't a static product. It's a living, breathing entity, constantly evolving as adversaries adapt and new vulnerabilities emerge. So thinking about that constant evolution, what does this all mean for you listening? How does this continually shifting threat landscape challenge you to be equally agile and adaptive in your defense strategies, not just as a one-time project, but as a continuous effort every single day, knowing that today's cutting-edge defense might very well be tomorrow's obsolete vulnerability?
It's a profound question, and it really drives the core challenge and necessity of modern cybersecurity. It pushes us, and should push you, to never stop learning, never stop adapting, and never stop innovating in how we approach protecting our organizations and information in this dynamic environment.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into intelligence reporting and dissemination within the EC Council CTIA framework. Keep learning, keep questioning, and stay secure.